What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be fulfilling a long-time promise from me in discussing Team Coffee and talking about why I love this team so much, because there's definitely a lot of things that I could say about Team Coffee that I love so much, and similar to my discussion talking about Ruby and its core 8 characters and some other parts of the show, which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out that video, then I highly recommend you guys check that out. That might be some of the work that I am particularly proud of here on this channel, but I'm going to try to give that team particularly the same amount of love and the same amount of care that I did in that video, talking about just these 4 characters and how much I appreciate their growth and how much I appreciate their overall development in the show. So without further ado, let us get started. So I guess we're going to start this off with probably one of my favorite characters from this team in Velvet. And Velvet is another character that I've found myself relating to strongly just for like the insecurities that I honestly established with Velvet to some degree. Like, I don't know what it was in the show. Like, Velvet didn't really have like, I guess, that many lines beyond the opening line we saw of her in Volume 2 when they just arrived back from their mission, which now I understand why she sounded so shaken up when we saw her. But watching that video and watching, or not watching that, let's say that scene for whatever reason to me like established this kind of like more nervous, this more like frail, timid side. And I guess also from seeing Cardin bully her throughout some of the show, there's a lot about Velvet that I definitely related to when I was a lot younger. I got bullied a lot, and I guess there's a part of just that not fighting back that I understood in Velvet. And then getting to see her grow into an absolute freaking badass in so many of these scenes going forward that I love getting to see. And it's something that I think in the books they do so well. And there's so much of Velvet that's like she didn't like grow from being timid to being like a cold-hearted badass. She still has that kind, considerate, compassionate spirit to her. And there's so many people that she just shows so much care and affection toward. And she definitely shows she can have a bit more of a prickly side to her when you push her too far, but there's so many facets to just Velvet as a character, and there's so much care and love that I know she shows to so many different people. And even to the people that we maybe didn't get to know all that well. I think his name was Nolan, the character that was in the Vital Festival, and one of the first images that Velvet had to use in the book After the Fall. I think if I remember correctly, she was going to call on his weapon using her semblance and using her weapon, her camera, and it broke my heart reading that scene. Just like this opening scene in the fight, where just she's hesitating to use this because if she does, that's it. She loses the image, and that's the last thing she really has for Nolan. And that was heartbreaking to me that she cared about that picture so much as a memento of that person who we didn't really get to know that well in the show, and it just like it spoke really strongly to Velvet's character to me. And getting to see Velvet branch out a little bit more on her own beyond the confidence of Team Coffee, beyond Coco, and so many of these other characters who I feel like not so much were like a crutch or like even were holding her back or anything like that. It's just as like everyone seemed extra protective of Velvet, and seeing Velvet getting the chance to branch out on her own and develop as a character all on her own, I thought was really interesting and really special to see in her. Then we'll move on to Coco, who is in a similar position of characters that I found something in that I like thought was interesting, and getting to see them as an entity on their own was cool in the books. Coco, I always thought as Miss Calm, Cool, Collected. There's that cocky suave to her that I found myself hating and loving about her. Like, there's something about cocky characters in general that I've never really liked, but something about the way Coco pulled it off that I found myself liking. I found myself appreciating, finding interesting, finding cool for her. Some of that made me, I guess, kind of wonder where a lot of that confidence came from. Maybe it was because of that I somehow knew internally that maybe that confidence wasn't as grand as she tried making it seem. Like, seeing in the books that that day when they arrived back in Volume 2, that moment where we didn't really get a sense of what exactly happened. Or I guess, like, I think we might have known that the mission failed. It's been a while since I've seen Volume 2 of Ruby. I need to rewatch it at one point. I might remind myself of it, but see, we kind of knew something happened on that mission, but we didn't really get the sense of what. And seeing Coco as shaken up as she was by the end of that, I thought made that scene really special. And it made that scene hit so much harder. And it's also one of the other highlights of that scene for me that when Coco got called up, we got to see this emotional side of her and just this reality kind of coming to Coco in a way that I not so much wish it would have come for Ruby, but I think it's interesting the way that it came to Coco and the way that she was understandably racked with guilt and the way that they dealt with that I thought was interesting. But it's also in that scene in the book that I think speaks to just why I love Team Coffee so much. Seeing the way they all passionately came to Coco to support her, comfort her, stand by her side when she was with Ozpin, that I thought really spoke strongly to how tight the bonds of this team really is. And that's just one of the many things about this team that I just love. And like it's something that I've loved seeing be explored in the books and something that I wish that they could transfer in some way over to Team Ruby. There's bits and pieces of what's happened with Team Ruby so far, and I say this, I'm recording this video on the 11th, and I just saw the episode here, and it's like Team Ruby has always been tight. They're a very good group of friends, and I'm never going to deny that. But there's always something about them that, like, it feels like they could also be doing so much more. And I mean, at least in the case of Ruby, this girl needs a hug. She needs someone who can just be like, hey, are you okay? Like, just ask her, because this girl's been through so much. And her team, I guess we really just haven't had the time for it, but I do wish that someone would talk to Ruby and be like, hey, it's okay. Or just give her the space to be able to vent some of this stuff out, because I'm sure this girl is keeping a lot of stuff bottled up inside. So that seeing Team Coffee has that kind of special connection to them that they can just do that, I think is really cool. Then we get to other characters like Yadashi, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. I apologize to any fans of him and or to the character and to the people, the writers of the show itself, if I am getting that wrong. I'm gonna feel so bad. But Yatsu, I also really appreciate it as a character. Just he's a gentle giant in so many ways, and I was never intimidated by him watching the show, and I mean, like, he tore through so many Grimm and so many different things like that, and I was like, yeah, I can kind of understand, like, he's a big, intimidating presence, but it's just, like, something about just his calm demeanor, or something about just his way of things that made me never really be afraid of him. Maybe it was because Velvet constantly said that, I have Yatsu to protect me, that kind of thing, and it's like, Yatsu never really felt like a threat to me. He never felt scary to me. And like I guess hearing that people were intimidated by this big hulking guy that I kind of like felt a little bit more sympathetic for, and it made me like, listen, Yatsu, we're the gentlemen, we're the nice guys. I more power to you, buddy. And more power to a lot of things. And it's like there's also something about like the way the powers in the book are described that I want to see so much more. I always believe that more than any physical power, a mental power is something so much stronger. So Yatsu's ability to alter memory and being able to change things with memory, I thought is really, really strong. And I want to see that come into play more, if at all. Like I mean, like I have the horrible idea that maybe that's how Ruby's going to help resolve some of her stuff, where it's just she represses it in some way. That'd be a terrible idea, and I don't want to see that happen. But it's just that's an idea that just came to mind in thinking about this. It's definitely a way of like dealing with trauma, definitely a way of dealing with like that kind of panic and stress and that kind of thing. But it's like you never want to repress those things. Like you just like some parts of making mistakes are what help you to grow. But then there is also just the parts that I feel like for Ruby's sake, I think it would be better if she could just repress it in some way. But just like the fact that Yatsu has that power and the fact that Yatsu's never really abused it, never really like overly used it, and I think like even mentioned that like he's never really relied on his semblance, made me fascinated in him that much more. In the same way I kind of was fascinated in Crow. Like Crow's semblance being always active and him always having to act against it made me love Crow that much more as a character because he works so hard for everything that he does. For those little moments that he spends with his niece, for every fight, everything. He's fighting so hard just to be able to have that moment. And it's part of what I appreciate so much of Crow. And for Yatsu, hearing that like he has the semblance, he just never used it because there's so many scenarios in which it doesn't work out for him. And he just made it all on his own strength and his own power. It's something that like I appreciate in John. His semblance of healing is interesting to me, but honestly, like if he never developed his semblance at all, I would have been totally fine with that. And I think he would have been an awesome character of just like never unlocked your semblance, but was able to just keep on ticking and fighting so many different people. And it's also something that I've appreciated about Fox in he made everything works so well for him. He might not be able to see, but never underestimate this man. Never look down on Fox because he is just such a amazing character in how he's able to adapt to so many things. He's an on the fly fighter, and I'd say like if there's ever someone I'd want from the Rubyverse on my team, it would be Fox for how fast, how adaptive, and how brilliant he is at coordinating everything. He is the key to making Team Coffee the special team they are, that they can communicate with each other without ever having to actually like say a word. I think makes them such a cohesive team and makes so much of what they do and how they function work so well. And seeing, I guess, their bonds tested over the books, seeing their reactions to things, made what hit in each one of the volumes talking about the destruction, the fall, everything hit so much harder and so much more strongly. I am begging for us to see more Team Coffee, be it in more books or just in the show, and getting some of the same love that they've gotten in the book in the show to be able to help things out. Because I feel like they can do so much for so many of these characters. And there's just so much about Team Coffee that I can go on gushing and gushing about because they're cool. They have a great lineup of abilities and skills among them, and there's so much more that they can provide to the story if they just got the chance to do so. And they even introduced something that another ability where they had to overcome, which I want to see in the show also so badly. I've always had a fascination with hypnotism. I've always had a fascination with the way, like, you can, again, mental powers, good powers, as I said before. And, like, the ability of hypnotism, be able to alter someone's thoughts and be able to manipulate them in any kind of capacity, I think is such an overpowered ability. And the way that they employed it in Ruby in the form of the mind control semblance of, I think Jax was his name, and the way that they overcame that in the books, I thought was so fascinating and so well done. And it's that kind of surpassing of issues that I feel like the team or the current cast that we're working with now could very sorely use. And there's so many applications in which I think that these characters could have a chance to shine. They just need to be able to have that moment to do so. But yeah, there you go, guys. This is my analysis on Team Coffee and why it is I love Team Coffee so much, and honestly, why I love them so much more than Team Ruby itself. I want to love Team Ruby so much, and I want to be able to have so much faith and confidence in them and in their ability to conquer anything that comes before them. But I definitely feel like the bonds need some reforging, or like they need something to kind of either strengthen them, revitalize them, or something like that. 'Cause some of these characters, it's like, I'm wondering what they're doing here now. Like, I mean, Ruby, she's the main character. We care about her journey because she wants to go on this to defeat Salem because she has reason to. She wants to become a huntress. Salem took her mom. There's so many things that kind of make Ruby a grounding character who I want to see so much for. But then there's other characters where, like, Blake, I love Blake so much. I talked about it in my video saying why I love Blake so much as a character. But what is she really doing there now? Like, yeah, you could say like she's there to support her friends, her team. Her team means so much more to her now and that kind of thing. But it's like, where's her skin in this game? like, I get it, like, they wanted to cut back on, like, talking about the faunus, racism, and that kind of thing, and I understand, like, I think in some talks they've said that, like, that's not something that we're very good at talking about, which is part of why it's not as included in the show anymore. But the thing is, like, that felt like the strongest thing Blake really had as, like, a motive for, like, what all of this is for. And I feel like it's something that kind of hasn't really been touched on in a while. It got kind of touched on in the episode I saw today, but I wanna see more of that for her. And then there's also the other characters where it's just like, I wanna understand more of, like, what it is they're doing to move forward. And they've definitely gone on the right path with this episode discussing what that is for them and what that means for them moving forward. But I feel like there's definitely so much more they could do with it, and I'm interested to see where they end up going with it, but in the end, we'll have to wait and see. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope this inspired you guys to maybe either check out the books or love Team Coffee as much as I do. If not, it's fine. Like I said, this is just my opinions. Feel free to argue them, debate them, whatever you guys want to do in the comments down below. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll check you guys out in the next video.